I had a hobby too. Mine happened to be guns and ballistics, and I studied guns and ballistics as much as I could, and I wrote an article about high velocity.
So out of all my years working at Weatherby, the last 5 have been some of the most exciting. Working with Adam, with him running the company.
And to think that I get the opportunity of carrying on my grandfather's legacy 75 years later here in Sheridan, Wyoming, I mean, it really is a dream come true.
Oh, I'm home. Thank God I'm home.
On Our Mark, the Weatherby Podcast.
Welcome back to On Our Mark, the Weatherby Podcast. And we're talking about bears because it's May. Tyler, our marketing manager, and JD just got back from a bear hunt, and I'm dying to know all about it. All I know is they were on a bear hunt, maybe a successful bear hunt. That's all I know, though. I want to know the details of that hunt.
We were starting to share some details. He's like, no.
Stop.
We're going to do this, Fred. We're going to do it live.
So we're now live. I want to know.
Yeah, so we've had this trip planned for a while. We decided to do early May just because of some dates, which actually now thinking back goes to part of the struggle of the trip. But we had these dates set probably 3 months ago. Mm-hmm. So we had this plan for a while. We wanted to do a Weatherby Peak44 content trip together. So we kind of just picked a spot in the map, had a few friends point us in the right direction. So yeah, it was just an awesome trip to want to test some products and all that stuff. So
the dates was a big thing that afterwards we were like, why did we get so caught up on that we had to go these dates? We did not need to go these dates, especially with the winter that we've had where it's like crazy snow.
Did you see some snow?
Mostly, yeah.
Lots of snow.
That happened to us a couple years ago. You're so anxious to get out and get in there, and sometimes you're like, I should have waited a week or two.
We talked about that, like our favorite things about spring bear, and it's like that it's the first thing after being cooped up all winter.
Yeah.
That's one of the exciting things, but it was like we could have waited.
Could have waited a little
2-3
bit.
weeks and been in a lot better shape.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're in Montana.
Montana, yep.
I'm not going to be any more specific than that.
Please don't.
But you're in Montana. I think it's okay to say the state. It's a big state.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of
we did a lot of driving, and that was the weather too. That was the thing. When we hiked in the first day, it was like 80 degrees, and we were talking about how we're going to be sunburnt and get tans and joking about that stuff. And within 45 minutes, had like every layer of clothing. That we had.
It was cold.
Yeah, it got very cold. We had snow, hail, we had lots of rain. So, and weathermen in Montana, they should all be fired. That was really bad.
A lot of spring showers.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, bluebird today, awesome. There won't be any rain. Who needs rain gear? And it was like,
did you have an inReach?
I did.
Did you do the inReach weather?
We didn't do that for whatever
we
reason.
We had way better service than I've ever had on a hunt like this.
And that might have been because we were too tall. we got good service, though.
There's a lot of hindsight things like that where we were like, oh, well, we were like 2,000 feet above where the bears are.
We should probably, from an organizational standpoint on this story, just go recap
day
by
day.
day.
Yeah. Let's hear day one.
So first day was pretty. We got off to kind of a slow start. We just met at my house and got loaded up, and we had everything prepackaged, like food and all that stuff, ready to go. So we loaded up the trailer and just headed north.
We brought my trailer, just a cargo trailer, so we could fit
all the things,
which ended up being really clutch.
Yes, big time.
So. So we headed north, and then we got there kind of midday, took our time, and got to a trailhead, and all the optimism from the trip. We're all having fun, listening to music and all that stuff, and then we get to the trailhead, and it's like, road is kind of closed. So we started our trip pretty far from where we needed to get, but that first night.
The road to drive or the road to hike?
There was a significant part of the road that we would need to hike to get into our
added
spot.
A couple miles.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
3 miles.
You had like a winter access gate that was closed kind of thing?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So opening night, it was beautiful. So we hiked in, got to a glassing spot.
Too warm.
It was pretty warm. But we got to we were kind of hunting our way in and got to a glassing spot. And again, it looked really good. It was just starting to get green. It was that particular spot just starting to get green. So we didn't do anything with camp. We decided to just go to the glassing nub and start glassing.
went and got camp set up after dark, did all that stuff, but we didn't see anything that first night.
No bears first night.
But we're still, like any hunt, you're so optimistic the first
For sure.
part. We wake up the next morning, it's beautiful and clear, so we get up to this glassing knob, and it'd been a couple hours, we hadn't seen anything, and it was like there was way more snow, like I said, than we were planning on. We just bought the one moose, and it's like that, you see brown fur going through the brush, and you're like, oh, right there.
Yeah, so you spot a moose.
Giant moose. He had some good bases going. He looked awesome. Later on in the glassing session, Mac, who is not on the podcast, he glassed up a moose shed in the bottom. Yeah.
And the worst part, he did the, right there. And you're like, oh, bear. And then
Mac's
he's like,
the worst at that.
well, it was like, well, that is super cool. Moose paddles, awesome. But you need to preface with, I spotted a shed, not a giant bear. That's
He's like, oh, I got one. Like, it's a doe. I'm like, yeah, but it's a deer. I'm like, but don't get all
Doesn't
worked
count.
up about it if it's not a big buck.
So we had the false alarm.
Yeah, and the days are long. Like starting at 5 a.m., it's like starting to get like light. And most bear hunters say you don't have to glass in the morning, but that first one, we were excited. So we got up first light.
You've got to try it.
Yeah.
You're there.
You're already in, so why not? We packed in, so why not?
So then about midday, we got a lot of wind.
Yes.
Yeah, things.
And that was our first not so awesome news of the trip. Mac was like, he went back towards camp and he glassed up camp, and he comes back and he's like, guys, I have some not so awesome news. We got some wind, and one of these prototype poles we were using on our shelter, it just came undone. So it poked a hole right through the top.
Awesome.
And so we were like, it was just laying flat all over our stuff. So it was covered, and we were supposed to get some rain that night. And we were like, well, now, so we should hunt through the day, stay back in here till dark and glass this spot, and until last light, and then we'll hike out. So that very quickly changed our plans. We were going to stay in for 3 days in that first spot, and it was like we got that very first evening, the next day, and then it was like we had to get out just because of the weather, and we didn't have any other way to
Yeah,
sleep.
because then right around 3 o'clock, getting the weather updates, the rain pushed forward and was gonna absolutely dump. And we're
Perfect.
like,
That's what you want.
let's ruin our sleeping bags on night one of a 7-day hunt. So we glassed till dark, or not till dark. We hunted our way out, so we were able to glass the entire way down. But we bombed off, and again, no bears were seen on that. I guess day-ish 2. It's kind of day 2.
2 days in, bear count is 0.
It is
Moose
0.
count is 1.
Moose count 1. Tons of deer. We
Optimism
saw-
still very high, though. We
Yeah.
were still in good spirits about
Did Mac pick up the shed that was glassed?
No,
It was too far?
Really
it was
far away.
a real pull to
I
get
got
down
you.
there.
Just where we were too, it would have been like probably 1,000 elevation at least. Maybe
probably
1,400.
Yeah,
Oh,
ish
wow.
to drop and then come back up. And I was like, man, if you want to go, we'll stay here. But
We'll watch you walk all the way down
yeah,
to the bottom.
and then it was like, well, it might be a little chewed. It started.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got the
less.
spotters on it, and it was probably brown on the other side, but
Yeah,
the
but it
top
was
side
pretty white.
some chews. Yeah.
Yeah, if the top side's chewed on a moose pal, since they're so big, the bottom side gets like a moldy rot stuff going on. I found a few in Alaska, and I was excited, and you pick it up, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's kind of gross.
So we're hiking out. We get back to the trailhead. Then we're just, like trying to find all of our contacts and all that stuff and see if we can get some advice. And we end up good thing we had the trailer, because we ended up sleeping in the trailer. We picked an awesome spot right by a railroad.
Oh, no.
Between the highway and a railroad. So it was like, we get back to the trailer and we're like, oh, it's dumping rain. So glad that it's going to be like, we'll have a shelter. And then it was like, train goes by, semis, and it was like, oh, this is not ideal. But
Not great.
We're not in a spot where we can relocate, so we're like, we'll just deal with it. Those guys sounded like slept pretty good.
I slept great.
I sleep with.
I was really
earplugs,
tired
and
because
I
the night
still-
before I did not sleep well because I was so excited. I
Yeah.
think I got like 2 hours of sleep.
But still, we're still like a
Yeah.
couple days in. Things are fine.
Ah, we got
Everything's
plenty of time.
Yeah. So the initial plan was we'd hunt that spot for 3 days and then go to this other spot in a totally different area, just to kind of play off of like, hey, if the bears aren't right here, then we'll go to this other place and like kind of different terrain set. So we're like, we get kind of some intel from some buddies. It's like, you guys should come here. It's green. Let's go. So we're like, okay, I guess we're now just driving the opposite direction.
Yep. Glad
So-
we went there.
Yeah. So we ended up heading out there, and Again, optimism was high, but crazy thunderstorms. Like unreal amount of rain.
This new spot, though, we get in there, and it was not anywhere near as steep. It was a lot more doable. We get in there. On the hike in, our buddy spotted, Sayer spotted a bear, but it was on a dead run.
Shout out.
And so we think the bear winded us, but we never saw it again. It went into this coulee that had a bunch of really thick brush.
Oh, good word use. In Montana, they're not draws, they're coolies.
Coolies, yeah.
So we got up onto a high point thinking, and we spread out. So Mac and Tyler stayed on one end. Me and Sayer went down to the far end, just trying to get a different angle into it. And we just never saw that bear. And then late afternoon, early evening, it starts dumping rain. And
4 o'clock.
And we forgot this. Mac forgot rain gear, so that was tough. He did.
We're not going to throw any brands, but he did get a really nice set of Walmart rain gear. So
it lasted roughly 12 seconds.
Yeah,
maybe.
he did one squat.
Just ripped right in the crotch.
That's so good.
So
you can still wear it. I mean, it's still waterproof from above, right?
Yeah.
But we're to that point. We're still optimistic. It's a new spot. We saw a bear, and so we're like, we need to stay. And it's dumping rain though, and it was like now fog's rolling in. And we can't even see well, and it was like we can sit here for like another 4 hours. And I was like, do you think it's gonna clear up?
What elevation are you? Do you know?
56. It was a lot lower.
This is way
elevation.
lower. After that that first one, not seeing the upper bowls being green, we're like, okay, this will be good. We'll go.
Mac and I joked
elevation.
about that though. When it started, when the storm came, it was hail, and I was like, awesome. This is going to be one of those spring storms where it like hails real hard and then it just clears up. Yeah. Well, it hailed really hard and then rained really hard for a very long time, like several hours of Max just drenched and
camera gear drenched.
So we're like, okay, we need to get out of here.
So we had some good buddies that let us dry out. We found a dryer. We dried all of our clothes.
Oh, like an actual laundry dryer.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was super clutch. We got, again, about 4 hours of sleep because for whatever reason, I just think we got to get up at 5 o'clock every morning.
No, it was 4. We got up at 4.
Up at 4 so that we could hike in at 5. So we went back to the same spot that we went the night before.
And we were seeing tons of game, but no bears. We saw deer. We saw tons of elk.
Yeah.
There was turkeys everywhere.
Seeing 50 or 60 mule deer a night.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It was awesome. That part was awesome.
There's no shortage of game, just not what we're looking for, obviously. We were trying to find bears, so you're like, yeah, there's something. That's not it.
Yeah.
Grouse everywhere.
The grouse were going crazy. That morning when we were hiking in, we heard grouse drumming. We heard turkeys gobbling. Man,
we saw plenty of turkeys.
It was just beautiful. It was like, man, this is picture perfect, but I don't know if this is picture perfect for bears because I've never killed a bear at this point.
I think it's worth talking about just the weather. Like I'm originally from Texas. It's been a while, but if you don't live like in the mountains, it kind of sounds funny. Like, oh, the clouds are rolling in, like a storm was coming in, no big deal. But especially up there, it's like worse in Montana even than here in Wyoming.
The quick change, you mean?
Yeah, I've been on some spring bear hunts where all of a sudden you just it's like it fogs up. It's nuts.
And it comes in so
can't
fast.
See.
That was
Yeah. So like you can lose days of a spring hunt. Just like you can a fall or winter hunt.
That same situation where when we got there, we were talking about like tan lines and joking about like, oh, we're going to look like farmers and all this. And then an hour later,
instantly,
we were drenched. And we had good rain gear and stuff. I felt bad. Obviously, Mac was in a tough spot with. You always forget like one thing. That was a tough one to forget.
Yeah.
And so we're like, we needed to get out of there. Did we spend one more day there? Or is that when we bombed?
We spent that whole morning.
Yeah.
At this particular spot, we're going to give this spot a good look at. It was just a little bit different terrain. I mean, we're used to hunting like mountain type stuff, and this was very much like foothills, almost cattle country. Mm-hmm. And it's like, this is different. So we're getting less optimistic just because we're not familiar with that type of terrain.
So we got another hot tip about somewhere else.
Got another hot tip. So we're the fun part though, we're hiking out and we have 2 Longbeards and 5 Jakes. Yelp them into 5, 10 yards. I'm just giving a little, and they just come in literally 10 yards.
Sold it.
It's like awesome. When not all turkeys are suicidal, but these guys really did.
100%.
They wanted to be shot.
If you had turkey tags and a shotgun, no chance would those turkeys have come in.
Yeah,
no,
absolutely accurate.
Yeah. So that
They
was
know.
that was
I feel
awesome
like they know.
to see that. So that was fun. So then we get back to the truck.
And we're like, we're going to bomb to this other spot. It's like an hour drive from where we were. We get up there, and it was like, same type of feeling where it was like, this just doesn't feel like where we should be.
Did you see any yellow flowers on the hillsides?
No yellow flowers yet.
That's a problem.
Yeah. So that was the stuff we were talking about. It was like, man, it was green in some spots over here, but not over here. The first place we went, it was like, it's definitely not greened up enough to where they'd be.
Yeah.
There was definitely no flowers. But then we were like, okay, do we go back to where we started and like just really commit to down there? So that's what we did.
Why wouldn't you?
I'm an
looks at
open
me.
book.
Yeah.
I am not hard to tell my emotions. And Tyler's like, I think we should head back. And I'm like trying not to just lose my mind.
This is a stupid idea,
yeah.
Tyler.
And so
I asked him what he wanted to do, and then he's like, whatever you want to do. I'm like, okay, let's drive back.
It's fine.
yeah, it's never fine.
So
So we went back. We'd load up everything.
It took about maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then we were all back in like new country.
Yeah.
We're, going,
Yeah.
we're excited.
Fresh optimism.
We've spent like way more time in the truck than actually hunting. So now we're like, once we get to a spot and we spend some time, we're definitely going
Yeah,
to.
we could try to give the spot where you went, but you went to the entire state of
whole
Montana.
thing, yeah.
Yeah, so we head back to a similar area to area number 1.
Okay.
And we got a good night's sleep, right? I can't remember. Yeah, good night's sleep. We didn't sleep in a trailer there. Oh, a friend came through clutch.
Big time.
We
No
got
name.
recharged. We got some showers. And then it's like, okay, this is it. Like, we're committing to a spot, and we took in, we got some new tents.
I had a backup tent.
Yeah.
Tyler
I had a
brought
backup.
bivy.
I bought a bivy, and with the rain,
Yeah.
our buddy's like, hey, I have a better tent just in case you guys need a glass from the tents. So I got
Nice.
a nice tent where I could sit up in. So we then we hit the trail, and we're going up pretty early. But it was like 9 o'clock. So this is gonna be a death hike. It's
Like
not
just straight up kind of thing.
like 2,200 feet elevation and not very many miles.
Yeah, that's
So like we got miles in,
Ouch.
and then it was like the last mile was like, oh no,
Straight up, yeah.
yeah. So we got our good fill of hiking in.
But that first initial pull, it was, the false summits. Well, there was a pile of them.
Yeah.
The very first like glassing spot we get to, I look over and I'm like, there's a bear, but I could see a little fuzzy with it. So you're like, oh, it's a sow and a cub.
But that's
And-
still encouraging.
Oh yeah, we were.
We were pumped. We were like, oh, it's gonna be bear mecca on the other side.
And our buddy that was like, that totally lined us out on this spot. He was like, you're gonna find bears in there. I've never not found bears in there.
He literally, what did he say? Like,
I don't know that we can repeat what he said if you can't
Yeah,
find
he's like,
bears,
if you
what that
can't
would
fi-
make us. But he just basically
So
saying,
you're telling me there's a chance?
yes, exactly. So we were, again, optimism. We're like excited again. And we're like, we're not even very far in here. This is going to be great.
and
So-
then once we get past the next false summit,
Oh, we
we
forgot about
see-
the hikers, though.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we spot the sow and the cub, and we film them for a little bit. And then 5 hikers and a dog get on the rock that's between
We're like,
us. So
what
like
are
one
you guys
canyon
doing
in between us.
here?
And they're like hollering and jumping up because they climbed the rock, so they're excited.
Ah.
But they don't know that the bear's there.
Do they
And-
know you're there?
Oh, they had to have because we're in Hunter Orange, and so
Okay.
and we could see them plain as day because
Yeah.
we're like eye level with them. But because they're yelling, now Mom is not happy, so she comes out of the trees and is all bowed up.
Oh, no way.
And like I tried to film it,
How
but
far? How far from them?
we
are they?
were like 800 yards from the bear, but they were in between us and the bear. And the trail that they came in on was even closer to Mama and the cub. So I could see all of the hikers and the 2 bears in my binos.
Awesome.
And obviously, like, they have every right to be there and recreate, but it's like when you're on the lake and you're fishing and someone's like wakeboarding or around you, you're like,
You're like,
I'd like to use it this way.
Did you
know?
notice that I was doing a thing
Yeah, and-
before you got here?
And also the fact that it was like they are not prepared. We looking at them through the binos, like they don't have anything. They don't have spray. They don't have anything if there is a bear situation. And that's obviously like one of the ones that you don't want to have is a
The
sow
mama
with the
bear.
cub. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, they finally hiked down.
They hiked down. She found some dark timber.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're like, okay, we're excited. We're going to hike to our camping spot, which we should have been able to glass right from camp. So we were excited about that. But we get to that next fall summit, and it's like, oh, our camping spot has a ton of snow on it when we're looking up at it. And it's like oh no.
Like 4+ feet of snow. So it was like
Where you had been the days before?
No. Where we were going to go camp at the top so we could glass from. We hit another ridge, so we're not even probably halfway up. And it's like we have to put camp here because we're not. There's nowhere else.
Yeah.
So we put camp there, and then we're like, we'll stay here for a while, glass everything around us before we head up. And
we started glassing. We checked the weather.
Mm-hmm.
Weather was supposed to clear at 2:30 in the afternoon, so we were going to just glass from camp. There's a ton of country to see.
And that's when we saw the mountain goats. So we started seeing mountain goats, which was awesome.
You saw mountain goats?
Yeah.
Yes, like the most majestic spot a mountain goat could ever be, just overlooking his entire valley.
It looked ridiculous. Mac was like,
He's on like Pride Rock?
yes,
seriously, it was exactly it. Pride Rock. Like it was, and Mac did his
awesome.
super excited, but this time he was like, "It's a mountain goat," and it stood out like it was white puffy thing on a rock. So
That's super cool.
We saw more mountain goats than bears on this trip.
way more mountain
No
goats and
way.
a collared one. We got
Yeah,
pretty
that
good
was pretty
footage of
cool.
that.
Yep.
But it was again like we're seeing stuff, but we're like just not bears. We won't.
Yeah, we got mule deer walking 100 yards from camp, kind of thing. Just like this is what you want. Just add bears, right?
Yeah.
But then we finally get up top. We post hold quite a bit, and there was really deep spots. And then
You had to get buried.
yeah,
But we were gonna hike to this other glassing spot and look over because there was similar country to what the sow and cub was in. So we're like, that's got to be bear mecca. It's pretty far from any hiker type situation. We were in there, a good distance to where it's like, if we go over this ridge, there's not anyone hiking in there. So.
and there was just no way with the snow that anybody else had been in there. We'd have been able to tell because it's like when we were post hole and it's like waist deep to chest deep in some of the spots,
Right.
you'd fall through and you're like, well, I hope I hit the bottom because if not, it's going to be a long one.
Yeah. So we got up to that first glassing point with so much optimism, and we saw a ton of elk and no bears.
So that whole day of like 8 hours of like in the same spot, and we could just see everything. It's like you're at like the highest point. There's nothing else that you
Right.
could get to. And we can see all these spots that you're like, that's where one should be.
There should be a thing there.
Yeah.
And then we're seeing those spots and ranging, and we're like, this country is so big. Something that looks like 300 yards away, it's like, that's 900 yards away.
Right.
So
Big sky country.
Yeah.
Was there flowers there?
There was some, but not
Yeah.
anywhere near.
Not heavy?
Yeah, and just the greenery. There was like in the 3 days that we spent in that spot, from day 1 to day 3, you could see the hill like
For sure. It's coming
totally
alive.
greened
yeah,
up.
if you did like a time lapse for 3 days, it would have been like 3 times as green probably. It was
And we're
cool.
all 3 spread out on this knob trying to get different angles and look
Sure.
at different spots. And like, it was just when you spend an entire day glassing every direction the entire time you're there, and nobody can turn up a bear, your optimism starts to dwindle.
Yeah, and we're
does.
like, oh, do we suck? But then it's like, well, we're seeing elk from 1,600 yards. It's like we're doing
spotting
we're
things.
spotting things, just
Yeah.
not bears.
We did see a couple other hunters, but they, for the most part, stayed not like in our.
Yeah, not
Sure.
close.
Yeah.
Not close.
But I don't even remember what day we were on.
So we did a full day on that glassing knob from 6 to dark.
To 9, legal
No
shooting light
bears.
was like
No
9:04.
bears.
Yeah.
So we hiked back to camp that night, and this is so the next day would be our last day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, okay, we'll hike back to that glassing knob, and then we're like, we'll spend all day here.
You're committed to the spot.
We're
at this
committed.
point,
It's
right?
like
You're there.
we're either going to find one here. It's like does not make sense to try to change. So we are now on this glassing knob all day. Similar story on this day where it's like, and this is our last full day. Like we were going to hunt the next morning, and then we had to get back. So
But elevation-wise, we were like, maybe we should leave a little early from here and kind of hunt our way back to camp because it was a big bowl. And once we get back to camp, we are going to be closer to a level that we'd seen the sow, and maybe everything's just below us. So that was kind of our plan. And it's like, let's leave in like 15,
yeah, it
20
was
minutes.
6:45, and we go, we're going to leave at 7.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to leave at 7 and hunt our way back to camp. And at 6:50, Mac's like, hey, JD, can I borrow your spotter so I can look at this stump?
Because we've obviously spotted a million.
Oh, yeah.
bear
There's a
stumps.
lot of stump bears.
A lot of
you
stump
know?
bears. And so it's almost pushing 7, and he goes, that's a bear.
That's not a stump.
Like, yeah.
The
so-
sheer
love
shock,
it.
though, that's never good when you're like, it's actually what we're looking for.
No.
And it was 14 or 1,500
No,
yards
it
away.
was 1,600 from where we were.
Whoa.
So I ranged
Long ways.
the bear.
It's like how much shooting time?
It's almost 7, so it gets dark.
We had
dark.
2 hours.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, so it get
But I ranged,
Yeah.
so it was straight. We'd lose every bit of our elevation. It was like, it's in the bottom. Like we can see the trail from where the bear is. I ranged the bear, it was 1,600. And then I was like, the end of that knob, it should put us like 400 or 500 yards.
Oh, away from camp or towards camp?
Not even close to camp.
Not
Totally
even-
different ridge.
yeah, different
And
way.
Sweet.
So we're like, okay, we got to go for it. There's no other option. We haven't seen anything else and we're out of time. So we just started.
Well,
going.
yeah, you're going for it.
We packed up real quick. We dropped 1,600 or 1,700 feet of elevation in about 20 minutes.
Whoa.
It was like a controlled
Like your
fall.
ears are popping.
Yeah, we were we were going pretty fast because we're like, this is it.
We hit a little like creek bottom and a like mini waterfall. Tyler went over first, and then I didn't completely did not mean to, but just started sliding. And like I'm on my butt for quite a ways, and then like came to the ledge, and Tyler's like kind of getting ready to try to catch me.
Nice.
And I landed and we just started laughing.
He like superhero landed, like perfect stuck it.
It was a pop-up slide, just like
Yeah.
he's-
Yeah. Like going into second. and
Exactly.
just, whoop.
So that was pretty cool.
We would turn around though, and Max like trying not to fall too, and so trying to film any of it, he was like, "I maybe got some Blair Witch Project stuff of you
Right,
falling,
just,
but that's
just
about
running after you.
it." Yeah,
Yeah. And then we side hilled for quite a
This,
ways.
this is like a camera guy's nightmare too,
Oh, yeah.
by the way, because it's really nice when you're deer hunting or elk hunting and you're like they get set up and you know that unless something spooks that animal, it's just gonna be there.
Right there,
Like
yeah.
in my mind, bear hunting's not that way. You're just like we gotta go. Like
Yeah.
you're almost like panicked.
We made the joke of like all the commercial hunting commercials where you're running through the woods. It's like you never like no, we were
You
that
were running.
commercial.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the camera guy's like, he's just doing everything he can to keep up and try to like capture some of it while running.
yeah. But we finally get it was. I've never seen a spot more perfect. We get to the end of this ridge and it's like perfectly flat, like lay down prone.
It was like meant to be. Like we get to the ridge and it's
wow.
like 650 or something. JD's like, you want to shoot him from here? And he's like, then there's just this ridge that's glowing, a perfect
and we're
shooting
still
spot.
quite a ways above the
Yeah.
bear, so we had
You
we
can
weren't-
see him from there.
Yeah.
He
So
was out like sunning. He was just sitting on his butt.
he had just woken up, I would think, because he's kind of zonked out. He was just like, he wasn't moving. He wasn't really eating either. He was just like sunning himself.
He's like, so I'm alive.
Yeah. So I'm like, let's get to it. So we got down to that little bench and it was able to get prone and it's 400 yards.
400 on the button. It was like
Nice.
yeah, but
Shoot. So what are we shooting?
On this one, we were shooting a 338 RPM,
Okay.
262 grain hammer.
Nice.
So,
yeah, that's good bear medicine.
Yeah, good bear medicine. So
for sure.
but we we done dope charts for both our guns, and my binos have the rangefinder in them and calculate ballistics for you. Tyler asked for dope, and I look at my dope chart, and I was like, "That's not what the binos are saying." And I'm like,
it was very good that we used the.
It would have been a miss by far, like not even
Really?
close.
You
if
had
we
a
used-
discrepancy.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So we're
Just
sitting there, we kinda-
elevation, just everything was a little bit different. And then that particular, it's a heavy bullet. So.
And I plugged them in, so like in the app for the EL Range TA, you can put in a custom load, all that stuff.
Right.
I'd entered everything, and I was like, "This is good data that went in, so I'm gonna trust the binos." But I'd already told him the dope, and there was also a miscommunication. First, he said 2.5, and I was like, "No, not 2.5."
Well, it went. I go, JD, what's my dope? And then it goes from JD to Mac to me, and it's like 2.5. I go, JD, what's the dope? And then it goes back to Mac, 2.5. And JD's like, no.
You want to play a game of telephone when
Yeah,
you're
for sure.
Yeah.
when you're doing this for sure.
So, because JD was running the spotter with the camera, Mac was filming me, and then, so then we got back on track, and then it was like dial to 8.5 or something like.
it was
Oh, that's
ended up
way
being
different than 2.5.
Yeah,
Yes, and that's what I was like, that's not right.
it ended up being 7.25. Is
And
what
then the readjustment, I was like, are you sure he's 400? And then you ranged again.
Yep.
You're like, oh, my binos gave me a different number.
and I was
So,
like, "Go with this 7.25," and
Trust it.
yeah,
yeah.
And we're both shooting suppressed, so we're like, we're not worried. And he's out in front, so we're not like worried about muzzle
and we're
blast
good.
or nothing.
He's now been in the same spot for from the time we left. It's now been 45
From when he
minutes.
turned from stump to bear.
Stump to bear, 45
He hasn't
minutes
moved.
now.
Cool. Yeah.
He's in the same spot. Plenty of time. I'm pumped. I have not shot a bear.
Yeah.
So
But pretty small opening. I'm still anxious because it's like if he takes like 10 steps in any direction, he's in the timber, and we're not likely to see him again.
yeah. So I got my nerves.
Which is common with bears.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I got my nerves. I can feel my heart pounding. I was like, hey, I'm going to do a dry fire here. So I did a dry fire. Felt great. And then right after that, it was like everyone's on them and
Game time.
game time. So ease the trigger off. And this is where it's just so fitting for the whole trip of an emotional roller coaster is I shoot and JD goes, miss high. I'm like,
What?
I feel like the biggest loser of all time because of how hard the trip was.
Yeah.
Saw one bear. I've got two buddies who also have bear tags. Either like they let me shoot, so it's like you just feel like I felt like a complete loser. It's like how high is like did I miss by like? He's like you had to have taken some hair off of him. So we got him spotted. I had him in the scope. He just went a little bit like probably 10 yards.
And he's in the trees, though.
He's in the trees. We have binos and spotter on both sides of the tree.
And there's 3 of us.
We're all looking. He doesn't come out of the trees. It's like, oh, well, we're shooting suppressed. He must have not have heard it. He has no idea. So we're on the gun. I'm waiting. Mac's like, hey, I'm gonna run down the ridge to see if I can get a different angle because he has not come out. And then at that point, JD's like, hey, Tyler, come look at this.
So I review the footage, and I'm like, it looks like you hit him.
Maybe not a miss.
So I replay it like 3 times in slow-mo, and I'm like, definitely hit him, but I don't.
What are on the
just on my phone. So I'm
on your
digiscoping on
digiscope,
that
okay.
little ATC and just my phone. And I've looked at it a few times. And I'm like, you definitely hit him, but I can't tell from the angle. I showed it to Tyler once, and I'm like, I think you hit him. And he goes, I didn't just hit him. I hit him perfect.
Because there was a hammer trail on this one as well.
Yeah.
So you see the bullet enter perfectly behind his
We were
shoulder.
so steep, though, the angle down. You can see it come in, but when you
see
watch it live,
it goes through.
Yeah, but it deflects above him.
Oh, there's been so many instances this past season where you're watching live, and I did the same thing. Like, hey, I think you missed.
Yeah.
And then you're even going back and you're watching it, and it's like, I'm not 100% convinced that you missed, but I'm also not 100% convinced that you hit. Yeah. Because you're watching on like a little 3-inch screen.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you watch it like on your computer later, and you're like, well, I'm an idiot. It's like perfect.
In slow-mo, it's so obvious. You're like, oh,
there was a perfect dimple, too. And what JD had seen is it was a complete pass-through. And it's kind of hard to see
how
how
it hit the rock or something.
Yeah,
right
so
behind
how
him.
steep that angle is, too. It's like he was, I don't know what degree that would be, but it was like
steep.
a wall behind him. So like once it hit, it like
so it looked
splashed.
like a high hit, but it went through him and
splashed the
that
dirt
makes sense.
behind. So now,
Tyler had gone through the just crushed. He thinks he missed.
Yeah, now you're elated.
For me, it was less about missing the bear, and it's like, man, I just let my buddies down after a hard trip. This is what we needed.
Yeah,
and we just lost every bit of our elevation. We're like down to the trail now, so we're like
perfect.
Now what? We're so much closer to the truck. We should just do that. And but now we figured out that he did hit the bear.
So now we're all happy again. We get the emotions of like that's a dead bear.
But where is he?
He's totally across the canyon, and we never saw him again. So we're like, he had to have just gone the 20 yards and died. But I'm like, boys, check out the creek.
Yeah.
It is
so
raging.
we have to drop more elevation and then hike back up to him. So we drop elevation, and this creek is ripping.
And
so, no.
So we're like, well, we're just gonna get wet. We're gonna do it, and then I'm like, boys, we're so close to the trailhead. There's a bridge.
Yeah,
over there. Let's go.
Okay, I was about to say, did you strip down to your skivvies?
That was original. We're just like, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna get over there.
Right on.
So we hike back out, and then get across the bridge, and then hike back in. So we get up to him, or where he should be. And Mac has the most confidence I've ever seen in an individual of where I shot this bear.
He's like, it's this rock pile. And we're like, no, there's no, look at the footage. And then we had this back and forth because Tyler's like, it's next to the dead tree. And Mac was like, it's got branches on one side. And it was like, It's kind of dead. Whatever. We're just trying to figure out because we're losing we're getting real close to 9 o'clock.
Because the elevation drop and then hiking back out and then getting
in the
back
timber,
up
so
in the
you're losing
timber.
that.
Do your binos have the thing where you can like drop the pin?
100%, but I didn't use it, so
fail.
Yes, big time.
It's
big
like
time
the
fail.
best tool for this situation.
It's literally in the name. EO Range TA, tracking assistant. So Mac's like, you know what? If we had some of those binos with tracking, I was like, yeah, that'd be great. Let's keep looking for this bear.
Yeah, because you did not tell me that your binos had that. So just now.
We hike around in the dark, and we're like, this is dumb. We're wasting time.
Can't see anything.
We can't see anything. We're just spinning our wheels. So we're like,
you didn't find blood. You didn't find
zero.
anything.
No.
And bears don't bleed real well. They're
No.
fatty and they've got thick hair.
Yep. So we hike out, and next morning we're like, we're just going to get in there early and grid. We hike in. A buddy of mine is like, hey, I'll come with you guys, and I'll bring a dog, and dogs are legal in Montana, but this is like a lab. This is not a blood
he was
tracking dog.
a family dog.
Just bringing a dog.
Just bringing a dog for a hike. So we get up there, and Tyler's like, man, we should be really close to where we were last night. And I was like, he's right there. So we were within 10 yards of this thing. For
you just couldn't see it.
We couldn't see him. He was wadded up into a tree.
And he was a chocolate bear, so he's brown.
It blends in good.
Yeah, it took us less than 30 seconds to find him.
It was literally like, walk there. Okay, this is where we should start looking. And then it was like, there he is. He's dead.
So after you found him, did the dog find him? Or did the dog never even care?
No, he was just being a lab.
Yeah, our buddy was like, hey, where's the bear? Like, trying to get in. It was like, no, it's not
even a little.
But
that's awesome.
And at that point, we didn't know where he was, so Mac graciously.
But he volunteered for this way ahead of time.
He volunteered way. Yes.
He was like, guys, I'm gonna go get camp. You guys look for the bear. I will come catch up with you afterwards. And Tyler and I were like, that sounds like the best plan
This is the best
ever.
plan that you could come up with right now.
Right before we split up, though, Mac was like, I don't know why I volunteered for this.
This was a terrible idea.
So bad.
Yeah. So Mac hiked and got camp. We took a few photos. Yeah, that's kind of
nice.
The end cap.
So,
was there any?
So do you have from where he was shot to where he laid to rest?
Oh, he didn't go like 20 yards. What happened though? After the shot, he got into the timber. He must have died like the moment he got into the timber and rolled quite
Back
a ways
down.
Downhill. So we were looking up above.
Oh,
yeah.
And for him to keep running, and he had already started rolling. So we were
he
looking.
Died super fast.
Oh, like
within seconds.
Seconds. Yeah, it was.
Gotcha. 338 for the win. Nice. Yeah. Very cool.
That was another awesome thing. Like that 338 RPM has such a short barrel, the 18-inch barrel. Mm-hmm. So even with the suppressor and running it attached to my pack, I was not fighting brush every time we'd go through timber stuff. And it was so steep. You know how it is when you're like double tracking poles, take a step, and then you hit a tree limb and you want to get yanked back downhill. It was so nice to have that super short barrel. And for the backcountry stuff, it was awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Do you know your muzzle velocity?
2484. So it's a 262. So it's
that's
big,
a
fat
real
bullet.
big pill.
Yeah. So that part was awesome. I know, especially Weatherby, so known for speed. That it's like that's not a fast number.
That's not a fast number, but
it's a giant bullet though.
Yeah,
so.
It's purpose built though. Obviously, that 338
work.
is for the standard. It's not for the Magnum. So to save all that weight. So it was pretty cool to show it off. The couple buddies that we did get to see, they were like, that thing is awesome.
It is. It's like the perfect bear gun.
Yeah,
for sure.
But it was one of those we went through such a range of emotions of, super optimistic and then just let down, and then the way that the shot unfolded of Tyler going through the exact same thing. So,
and the trip in general, it was fun. We did laugh a lot.
There was one of those times where it's like there's only two options. You can either cry or laugh. Yeah. So we just chose to laugh the whole time.
Everyone stayed super positive too.
Yeah, like we talked about that a lot.
Yeah, we're just like, hey, it could happen any minute. It could happen any minute.
And we're up here bear hunting. We shouldn't be whining about it. So.
Not that it's not fun on a fall, ungulate hunt, but there's something just a little more lighthearted about spring bear.
For sure.
I think that there's more camaraderie, I guess, around it. And it's a blast to just get out. Maybe you're just cooped up after being in winter,
and you're spending so much time glassing. Where a lot of the other hunts, you're more
so it's a little more social, and it's really fun.
Tyler's a big fan of Would You Rather?
Oh
that
wow!
game.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the best would you rather?
Man, there was a ton of scenarios where
Most of them were like, which
Yeah.
animal would you shoot?
it's like, if you could have a record book
yeah.
moose but never hunt elk again, and like, yeah, and
But-
then
so-
he would answer, then Mac and JD would answer, and then I'd be, then I would just change it slightly. It's
Yeah.
like,
well, wait, that's not the original.
but then you lose your legs. It was always some extreme. You're like, what? I wouldn't have agreed to it
Yeah.
if that was the deal.
I used to play that game with a college roommate, but it was like how you would want to die, and it was always terrible. Like, would you rather be killed with a toothpick or cheese grated to death? It's like both of those are terrible.
one of the best was, was it a bear-sized, would you rather fight 100 bear-sized,
Hamsters.
it was, would you rather fight 100 hamster-sized bears
100
or-
hamster-sized
or
bears.
one bear-sized hamster? So that was probably the best one of the trip.
That
We
was
had-
pretty good.
A lot of hours to do that, though. So.
Yeah.
Stop bears. Stop bears.
There was really, the bear count. If we're not counting
So 3 bears.
total. It was
Mom-
a flash of the one running,
Okay.
sow
Mom-
and a cub,
Yeah.
and then the one Tyler killed. And his was a boar, so it was like it was literally
Yeah.
the only opportunity
That's awesome.
in 7 days. And
It was the
last
last
came
hour
together.
of the last day.
Yeah. Well, congrats on your first bear, Tyler. That's
Appreciate
awesome.
that.
it was
That's
really
awesome.
cool.
You've got me beat. I've been on like 6 bear hunts and I've yet to pull the trigger. I've been like next to the shooter a bunch where they've killed bears.
This was my second true bear hunt. First one was successful.
Yeah.
It's very similar, chocolate bear, which was cool.
Yeah.
I wasn't the shooter on that one, but
We talked about that, though, too. Like, I don't know if I'm getting old, but I don't need to be the trigger guy anymore. Like, I was just as jacked up
It's
as
so
Tyler.
fun. Yeah.
You know,
I
in
love
the moment.
I just love being there. It's
Yeah.
really fun. So it's like, it's all of your bears.
Yeah.
They're all of yours bear. I can't talk
The
good.
the team's bears.
The team's bear.
teams bears.
Yeah.
But
Great
we-
job, guys.
we had a lot of
Appreciate you
fun.
sharing the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to learn more about the 338 RPM, we're loading that 262 hammer now. Should be available on our website already, and you could try some out. If you don't have the gun to shoot it, you could get one of those somewhere or from us too. So,
Huge fan of the 338.
yeah, so 18-inch barrel on the steel, a 20-inch barrel on the carbon barrel, and a 24-inch barrel on the number 3 contour, like AccuMark barrel, which technically the 18-inch barrel is also a number 3 contour, but there's just not enough wall thickness to do a number 2 or smaller
We
barrel.
didn't talk about that, how phenomenal it shot before we left. Tyler and I met up and shot at distance, but I had never shot the rifle at 100. And I was like, this feels weird.
Yeah, so we should do that.
And so we come back and shoot at 100, and they were both touching like in the center of the diamond, and it was like, yeah,
Okay,
I'm
that's
not
good.
touching anything. Just leave it alone.
That's what. It's good to shoot your hunting partner's gun too, because I had been familiar with your gun as well. You just never know when you have to trade guns or do something different. Just,
For sure.
So,
It all
yeah,
worked
that
out.
was very confident on that with that gun.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, thanks for sharing the story, guys.